Hello and welcome to the Good Scaz The Rugby, brought to you by our friends at Vodafone. A warm welcome if particularly you're not watching us but listening to us. It's important for me to welcome you to our very fancy space. I mean, we have Sporty Brownie on a shelf here behind me.
My mum's going to love that so much.
Grown-up Sporty Brownie in the house. Mo Hunt in the house. What do you make of the new abode?
I love it. I love it minus the tinsel, but I'm assuming post-Christmas we'll ditch the tinsel. We don't need to go back over how I feel about tinsel.
No. It's a permanent fixture.
But otherwise, I love it. Photos. I could probably pick different photos for you if you want. I can print some off next week if we need some different ones. But yeah, very cute. Lots of Vodafone, lots of red. Yeah, madness. We're in a studio, isn't it?
Yeah, crazy.
Insane.
Can we check your birth date? You did say good golly when you walked in.
I may have done.
Scazism. I think we should start calling them scazisms and just see how many we can collate through the season.
I like to portray myself as maybe 30 years older than I actually am sometimes.
Only 30.
Yeah. Well,
How old?
mid-40s.
We also have a Loughborough Lightning shirt here behind me.
Yeah, repping. Mo's new to the show, so we're not having Gloucester for a long time.
Well, we have red
Gotta
tinsel.
work for it.
Yeah. There's a lot of red actually as you look around the studio. Obviously, partnership with Vodafone.
And I'm wearing a Gloucester hat. This is not Christmas themed. It's cherry and white.
There we are. The circus is in town.
Okay. We are celebrating Christmas. I would like to know if your trees are up and decorated, wreaths in position.
No, but I literally went wreath making this morning with my mum. So I've got a wreath. And I've just had a text off my brother to say he's dropped a Christmas tree around my house. So quite what that looks like, I've no idea, because Christmas trees are a tricky business, I think. You've got to see it in its...
Yeah.
I never understand the people that buy them in a bag because you don't know where it's going.
Ah.
I like to see the fall of it.
Well, I was just thinking it's quite sad that he's dropped it round and you didn't get to pick it. Because that's part of the fun.
It is part of the fun, but it was also free if he did it. So
He didn't grow it as well. He did buy it somewhere,
No.
right?
He, I think, borrowed it from a friend.
Borrowed it. Is it going to go back?
One of the cast-offs from his
It's like,
Christmas tree.
I can't say that he's chopped it down in a forest somewhere.
No, he hasn't. He's got a friend that grows Christmas trees, and there's some that didn't make the cut.
Okay.
Like
so
a wonky veg, if
it's
you
like-
but for the Christmas tree.
Scazism.
a wonky veg Christmas tree. Do you have a wonky veg Christmas tree, Mo?
So good. No,
Do you have a real one?
Yeah, real one. We go to the same place each year for the last 3 years since I've lived with the girls, and it's such a great day. I love it. We get like mulled wine on arrival, little mince pie, and then we go around and just pick it. And naturally, we always pick it too big for the space that we've got for it to go in because it just doesn't look that big there.
I have to say, I've been puzzled. Every time I've walked past Christmas trees, I've looked at the size of the trees and gone, what is it these people live in? Because my version of a London house cannot accommodate any of the 12 trees standing here. I got a tree on the 16th of December already on the 16th of November because we're going to South Africa on the 16th of December. And I said to Richard, I will not be robbed of a single day of Christmas tree cheer.
A real one.
And we did, for the first time ever, get a real tree because in South Africa you don't have real trees. And the one that we bought, we thought was quite big for the corner in our lounge. And then when I showed my colleagues at work the photo of the tree, they were a little disappointed. They went, oh, is that it now?
Oh,
And I was like, well...
And a picture.
Well, I mean,
Let me see.
I can show you, but it's not very big. But I thought it was quite big because it's larger than the plastic tree we used to have. But I would like to report back that it does
If the top's not bending on the ceiling, it's too small.
Oh no, there is a lot of room
Scaz.
between it and the ceiling.
No.
That's part of it. You misjudged it. You've
I'd like
rammed
to
it in,
say-
you've scraped the ceiling.
In my defence,
You've had to
you would
chop the top
approve
off.
there is no tinsel on it.
I'm so proud of you, Elma. You've come a long way in this first year in England.
No tinsel on the Christmas tree. I've surrendered to the Emily Scarrett way of life. Where is this photo of the tree? I'm almost sure I sent
We're going to
producer
have a tree
Shira
off
one.
in a minute.
Show me. Oh my gosh, that thing is enormous. How do you get it inside?
in a bag.
Scrape the
Oh,
ceiling.
do you know what? Actually, funny story about that. As we pulled it out of the car, so it was in the back of my car. Beth Ann went out to get it and Maud went out to help her, Maud Muir. And as she got it out of the car, like the three of us thought we were going to help, but we didn't need it. Beth gets out of the car and literally, as she swings it round, the point of the top catches Maud in the eye. It was the funniest thing ever. Classic Maud.
Classic Maud.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? Classic
well,
Maud.
that's not an injury you'd want to explain to anyone.
No.
What happened to your eye? Well, it was taken out by a Christmas tree. I was very proud of this, but now I'm really worried about showing this to you guys, even in the first place.
Oh,
it's cute.
Yeah, it's cute.
What's it in?
It's in a pot. It is a growing tree.
Yeah.
It's
the
not
green
cut off.
confused me. You could definitely have gone bigger.
Yeah.
Well, I can't. My lounge really is not big enough for a bigger tree.
Do you have lights?
Put it on the floor.
Yeah, but then you can't walk past it. And also the problem is the cats are going to like destroy. So those things are out of cat reach. So you have to platform it a little bit. Otherwise, Frank will eat like all of our expensive decorations. So wouldn't want him eating glass. Priorities.
Behave yourself, Frank.
Trees are up. No tinsel in our private homes, but we are taking votes on whether we should just retain the tinsel for all of 2023. Input welcome. You were comparing notes on what you've been listening to. What's this thing that you listen to your music on that has a percentage of...
News to me.
Spotify Wrapped. So like you've probably seen it doing the rounds. A lot of people put it on their Instagram stories. But it gives you your whole year and what you've listened to.
There's like a pyramid of people who listen to music and you're at the top of it, right?
Really?
I'm up there with it. Only in the UK. I don't know about further afield. It was like top 98%.
What of... As in minutes listened to?
Yeah.
So do you ever not have music blaring?
No, not
This
really.
is the girl that also claims to be so busy and always working.
Yeah. Well, it's
With your
taken me
headphones in.
over 3 hours to get here. Music on the whole way.
So what is happening in the Mo Mobile?
Art. So my favourites, I think my top artist was something like Ed Sheeran. No, Ziggy Alberts was my top. And if you haven't heard him, would advise. He's Australian, I think, an Australian singer, but just super chill vibes, like real good.
Heard it here first.
Heard it here first. Ziggy Alberts, guys. Ziggy Alberts.
I'm the early adopter. Can I just read you the quote?
Who said that?
Because it's really quite astonishing.
By the way, can we just point out that
Let me read the quote. You've got your finger on the pulse of new music, always seeking the next hot thing. If a song is trending, you're on it.
I'm sorry. This cannot be true. Like, read us your top artist.
Screenshotted it.
That can't be.
No, top artist was Ed Sheeran, actually.
the most
Second, Tracy Chapman.
so good.
That is not cutting edge. That is the furthest thing from the cutting edge.
Oh,
It used to be cutting edge in 1991.
Hey,
So
look, I'm
good.
not arguing
It's
with
solid
it.
gold now.
That's what is-
I would give you the fact that it's solid
It is
gold.
solid gold.
But you are not an early adopter by any stretch of the imagination.
Look,
Any walk of
sometimes you've
life.
got to go with it.
what about you?
Okay, so my most listened to tunes, according to the streaming platform of my choice, all others are available. Obviously, I spent way too much energy listening to the Stranger Things soundtrack. Kate Bush, Running Up That Hill, comes in at number 1. The Arctic Monkeys, 4 out of 5. Number 2, and Old J's Left Hand Free. I've got some of the
Who?
XX.
Oh, Jay.
Old J. Early adopter.
Yeah,
Look at you.
Cutting
edge.
No, you have to know.
Miss Cutting Edge.
Play it to me.
Block Party.
I'm better with them hearing.
Inhaler.
Yeah.
Ring
yeah,
a bell?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sing it.
Yeah, Glass Animals. No?
Not a clue.
No.
Glass Animals.
Okay. Well,
Oh,
Scazzy.
Jay. Sounds like something you do on the computer. Oh, Jay. Do you know what I mean? Honestly.
I actually can't cope. I can't cope.
I bet I know the song. I just don't know the name.
What's your pre-rugby playlist, Mo? Come on. The curator of great beats.
Do you know what? It changes. Oh, I'm not even
Sorry.
accepting that when you're mugging me off. No, it changes. So, like, I just try and work out who's listening, like, what kind of vibe I want. The girls will vouch for me on this. No, I'm not.
Music for the people.
Yeah, do you know what I
Just, you
mean? It changes all the time. So, like, in the gym and stuff, especially, sometimes you need a sing along. So we'll go like Frozen soundtracks or like School of Rock like soundtrack to get the people going, you know.
Frozen soundtrack.
Yeah, do you not know? Well, Frozen's a bad example. Greatest Showman.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, no
But
one.
sometimes, so Bimba, Laura de Garda, who's come, she's like Spanish captain. She's over and she doesn't like any sing along in the gym at all. And probably because it's not
Headphones
her.
in.
Yeah, no headphones allowed in the gym. Yeah, no phones. We're not allowed phones in the gym. It's like we're all very much like one team. Anyway, yeah. So she's literally like, Mo, change it now. Like she always comes up to me and is like, you need to change it. But it's between like a few of us who's on music.
You and?
Zoe Allcroft goes changing room before game, but obviously we've had to pick up that slack for a little bit 'cause she's not back yet. Gwen Crabb, she's also a bit of a, well, she loves music, she's a bit of a DJ. And Cecilia.
Who's the early adopter among them? Who's the Emily Scarrett?
Emily Scarrett of Gloucester.
Who's the cutting edge?
Do you know, that would probably be Cecilia Tuipulotu. Like, she's, next level.
Yeah.
Breaking new tracks.
Yeah, and she always has like real good remixes.
Now, our guest this week is Canada's True North. She's their goal kicker, their powerful number 8, and she's their captain. A role that some would say she has literally, and I'm not exaggerating, been bred for. This is impressive. She led Canada to the semi-finals of the World Cup, the only team out of the top 4 that made it to that stage of the tournament that are still amateur. And she was nominated for World Rugby Player of the Year, picked at number 8 in the World Rugby Dream Team alongside our Scaz. A warm welcome to Sophie de Goede, or as we would probably call her in South Africa and in the Netherlands, de Goede. I'm sure no one else does that anymore, right?
Yeah, no, the Canadian accent really doesn't jive very well with the on the G.
Nor does the English, I'll tell you that for free.
Yeah, people here literally break out in hives when I start like rolling guttural G's around like that. It's good to have you along. Tell me what life's been like post-tournament.
Yeah, it's been crazy. I've been traveling a lot. So I got back from New Zealand, from the west coast of Canada. So it's kind of like on the way to stop. It'd like be like first point of entry into Canada. So stopped at home in Victoria for a few days. And then we were off to Monaco for the World Rugby Awards, which was a long way to go for 2 nights, but it was worth it. And then came back to visit my girlfriend who's on the east coast of Canada in Halifax. So I was there for a couple of days, then traveled down to San Diego to meet with my grandma and mom. They were on vacation down there, and then back up to Victoria. So it's been crazy, but lots of fun.
Were you as hungover as Elma and Scaz after the awards?
Ask how you pulled up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't feeling great, and I had to jump on like literally a full day of flying and like running through the Charles de Gaulle airport. So it was like a bit of a nightmare, but again, like I said, it was worth it.
So worth it.
It was a good night, wasn't it? It was a lot of fun.
It was a good night. I just loved seeing everyone so dressed up.
Yeah.
That was honestly one of my, favorite highlights, was just people really putting in the effort. But
I felt like we were at the Oscars.
It literally was. It was so glamorous. And now you're getting up at 7 a.m. your time to talk to us, which means we really appreciate it. And we just want to make sure that you have the best experience here. What Canadian thing are you loving the most about being back home? Is there anything familiar that you basically like just get stuck in doing, eating?
Yeah, I'd say like just going out for walks and like so where I'm from, West Coast of Canada, is like actually probably the most like mild climate from across Canada. So we don't often get a ton of snow. It's like the one place in Canada where you don't get a ton of snow, but we have like lots of pine trees and stuff like that. So just kind of getting in that like kind of West Coast rainforesty vibe and like smelling that. But more than anything, it's just been coming home and like seeing everyone that you know, and a lot of my parents' friends and my own friends that are saying that they tune in to watch the games even if they're not rugby people. And so that's pretty common in Canada, that people don't watch rugby. And so to actually have it on TSN, which is like our national sports provider, and have it so accessible to people to watch, that's been the coolest thing since being home.
So good. Was this a certain bit of food that you normally eat at home that you were looking forward to? Because we spoke last week about me just wanting some homemade scrambled eggs, because when you're away, you just have no control over what it comes out like, what it tastes like. So for me coming home, It was just really nice to be able to have something very normal. I'm thinking maple syrup, like but maybe I'm being very stereotypical.
Good toast with like peanut butter and jam or something, like just the brands that you know. I'm a big peanut butter person, and so just having like
crunchy or smooth.
It depends. So like I think smooth is better if you're putting it on fruit, and crunchy is better if you're putting it on bread. Like I'm really like an
texture
aficionado.
Strong.
I so agree with you. Like peanut butter with an apple, you want that smooth all day long, or banana. Whereas, in a sandwich on toast.
With a banana, a bit mushy.
No, totally agree.
But that crunchiness on good toast is unbeatable. Yeah. Like you can't put smooth peanut butter on like toast.
Too claggy.
Yeah, no one needs that.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay, so now that we've got the nutritional bits out of the way, let's talk about the actual rugby. and your experience out there. You absolutely cleaned up. Do we go straight to England, Canada now, or is it too soon?
No, we can go there. Yeah, no, that was a good, like, we started off slow. Obviously, you guys were up 12-0 to start. And then I think Juju and Karen's try, like, really
That was a great
spark
try.
in us. And it was incredible.
Very, very
like,
good
such
try.
good individual effort from both of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it kind of got us going and got that belief. I think the belief was always there in the week leading up, but then to start off with such a crappy start, just kind of like, probably shook that a bit. And that got us going. And then going into the half down 15-12, we were like feeling good about ourselves, feeling confident. And then I think just some silly discipline stuff. And we didn't get our kick chase right, which led to a few of your guys' tries. And yeah, just not clinical in the right areas. So it's hard, like looking back when you know that it's possible to win it with like a different ruck here or there, you know, like that 14-point swing basically with Abidal's try was a heartbreaker, but incredible try by your team. So yeah, it was a tough one to watch at the awards. Watching it get the international try of the year was like a dagger to the heart. But yeah, there's lots for us to learn from it, and I think we showed that we can hang with one of the top teams in the world.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think for me, like, obviously you're a hell of a leader. Like, everyone speaks so highly of you as a captain. What were you saying in those moments? So you go 12-0 down, you know the beliefs there. Like, what are you saying to the girls in that moment?
Yeah, I think it was so early in the game, right? And so there's so much time left to score. And we know that we have the collective ability and the individual brilliance to score like that.
Yeah.
So I think just maintaining that, like, we don't have to play above ourselves right now. We don't have to go into a shell. We just continue with our game plan. And because it's so early in the game, like, nothing really has to change. We just need to front up a bit more defensively and play in the right areas of the field.
You definitely fronted up defensively.
Yeah.
I think I speaking entirely for myself, but I think on behalf of a lot of the squad, that was one of the toughest physical battles. Certainly we had all comp probably. I was so sore the next day.
Really?
Yeah, it was ridiculous. And obviously there'll be a bit of residual fifth game of the tournament or whatever, but yeah, trying to waddle myself around the hotel the next day was not pretty.
I think that's like our Canadian DNA too, is to front up physically. And what we are trying to do is like maintain that identity, but also improve like our tactical play and like our game awareness and management and reading of the field and like all the conditions of the game. And I think we did that over the course of the tournament, but I think there's still tons of room for us to grow in that, because like we're all so young in terms of the amount of years that we've been playing rugby, no matter what our ages are. And so I think there's a ton of growth for us there just in playing big games like that. And I think we need to learn more how to win those big games. And so just being in that environment was massive for us.
I think that's the scariest thing, certainly.
Yeah. I was
over
literally
here,
about to say
over
the
this
same.
side of the pond, is like yourselves, America. Like you say, you are such great physical athletes, and yet rugby is still quite young in your own words. And I think once you've got more of that behind you, it's genuinely quite scary, daunting prospect for the rest of us once those two things combine. Definitely.
I might be going a bit left field now, but do you think having the girls over in the Prem 15s league has helped with that? Just that understanding of
for sure.
competition and stuff? Yeah,
like we have a domestic league in Canada, but it's really good for, I guess, development. But it's not really of a professional or international standard. And so I think it's unfortunate, to be honest, that we have to send, or that girls, they go of their own volition, but go over there because most of us want to live in Canada long term and like have partners and family here. But it's just not feasible right now to run a league like that in Canada and to have such a well-established and like well-marketed, well-coached league like the Premier 15s. You guys have so many good players in that league, whether they're international players or not. I think really helps us learn how to win. And even if we're not doing it together, like even if you don't have a Canadian team in the Prem 15s that's learning how to win together, I think just for those individual players to have exposure to good competition week in and week out and daily training environments is huge.
And does that make the game against England worth almost like a little bit more to a lot of those girls who've been playing over here in the Prem 15s? Like, does that add a level of... I'm sure it means a lot already. And you spoke about 2014 and, that result in the final back then also being part of the context coming into this game. But how much of it is heightened just a little bit because you guys also have so much exposure to what's happening in England domestically?
Yeah, I think, and not only exposure to what's happening in England domestically, but we hear from like the English international players that are going off to camp, week in and week out in a World Cup year. And so just kind of hearing the environment that they come from versus the environment that we've had historically, I think it adds like an extra layer of like personal motivation. And also like playing against your friends is like, there's always that extra layer there, but also rivalries. Like, I don't know, some of our Exeter girls playing against the Series girls, there's always going to be rivalry for us, at least from the England-Canada perspective, but you add the Saracens Exeter or whatever it may be, and I think there's an extra personal touch.
UV Poppy Clear is quite a good one, isn't it? Like England-Canada, Saracens teammates. That's a good
yeah.
match.
It's a cool one. Like, I respect Poppy so much and what she's done. But like, to me, the ultimate respect, like as a competitor, is to be actually able to go up against each other and like put out a good fight. And she came off better in that game, so I'll give it to her.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is why she's captain. What an answer. Love that.
I mean, just so classy,
Literally.
so gracious.
Yes, girl.
Brilliant. Speaking of opposite numbers, Alicia Corrigan, can we talk about her? I actually realized in preparing for today's conversation that I think I selected her for Team of the Week more than once over you.
That's absolutely fine.
Sorry.
It's understandable.
But she was absolutely phenomenal at this tournament. And it was just a joy watching her play.
Alicia's story is incredible. Like, she's just bet on herself at every single stage. She's from the smallest province in Canada. It's like a little island off the east coast of Canada. It's mostly about potato farming there, stereotypically. And she's just like bet on herself. She started playing rugby in high school. She went to UPI, which is like the university in that small province. Played really well for them there. Decided she was gonna move to Halifax, which is still not one of our bigger cities, but one of the biggest cities on the East Coast. So she moved provinces, moved away from home, just so she could train more consistently with some sort of higher level coaching there. Then decided COVID year she's going to take a leap of faith, go to series. And yeah, like I said, she's just bet on herself every single stage and her career's taken off. And she wasn't necessarily getting a lot of playing time in the build up to World Cup. And I think like we've all been there, and that's really hard to fight through and stay positive mentally and physically performing in practices. And when she got her chance, she like grabbed it by the horns and just went for it. And yeah, I'm just so proud of Alicia because I spent a good chunk of time with her at series, like living together. And I just think that her story is so incredible considering where she came from and the level that she's playing at now.
She was class. I think certainly when we were looking pre-game at, you always look a bit at certain players and obviously how they're playing, et cetera, et cetera. Certainly for me, looking at her opposite me, it was slightly daunting in that obviously she's probably more prolific as a winger, if that's fair to say. She played more minutes there. So someone with her pace as well as obviously all the rugby skills as well was a little bit frightening for me, I think, on the other side of it.
That's high praise. That is massive praise coming from you. But I just also,
she'll be stoked.
I think that's the thing. I think it's such a great moment to actually also just pay tribute to the people who took this opportunity for absolutely everything it was worth. As you say, she's really had to just back herself and believe that it's in there, and she just has to chase it and find it and show it off. And so this tournament was rich with so many of those stories. And I think that your team probably also was just... I loved, we made a piece with you guys behind the scenes where you guys were just dancing the whole time. And we had so much footage of the Canadian girls dancing. We literally didn't know how much, like, what do you take and what do you leave? Because there was just, I mean, you guys just oozed like a level of, I almost want to say it's self-abandonment. Like you guys were just having so much fun. You were just so in there and in the moment and just enjoying it and taking it for all it was worth. Is that accurate?
Yeah, like I've told multiple people since I've been home, I think you spend, like we were on tour for, I think 9.5 weeks because we were in Vancouver first and then we went to Fiji for a week and a half, and then we were at the World Cup. And like, even if you're spending 9 weeks straight, and most of the summer too, like with your best friends, you probably want some space at the end of it. And like, we get home and girls are in our group chat, like, send a picture of what you're doing right now. Like, we just miss each other. And I think like that's pretty special to have as a group. And it's not something that every team can say. And like, I know nothing about the England setup, so it's not a jab at all. But I just think like from my own experience, like in multiple teams that I've been in, it's not something you can say in every team. So to have that kind of connection, like within a national team, I think is pretty special and something that I hope we can continue to roll over year after year as we bring new people in and older people move on. I think if that's part of our Canadian identity, that's something that we should hold on to.
I'd say probably generally we're a bit stiffer maybe than the average team generally as an English group. But we were just talking before obviously we started recording. Is your dancing better than your singing?
Yes, I think so. But I don't think that the girls know that. Like,
please, can you prove it?
They would sing like their singing's just as good.
Please, can you prove it for us?
Me right now.
Yeah.
Neither is good. I'm the worst. Like, I'm the worst person to lead this team in those respects. I give that to other people. Who
are the big cheerleaders in the squad? Who are the people that are getting that going?
Brianna Miller's a huge one for us. Paige Ferries for sure. Alicia jumps in there too. Like there are so many girls that just get behind it. There's our like Quebec contingent, so like the French part of Canada, they are just like all about singing and dancing, and they do it all in French too. Obviously you can't dance in French, but they dance in French songs and sing French songs. And yeah, I think that like everyone kind of gloms onto that and like the culture that they have from their own province. And that's pretty special about Canada. Like we're so big geographically that there are like such regional characteristics of like the different provinces where you're from. And I think like having we have someone from every province in Canada except one on our team. There's 10 provinces. So I think that's pretty special that we can kind of see the cultures of each province across the board. And the Quebec girls, part of their culture is definitely like knowing how to have a good time and bring up the energy.
Totosi and Dalika liked to TikTok when they were at Loughborough. And they never got involved, but they liked a little, because they lived in CDL, Cassadell Loughborough, which is one of the Loughborough houses that we used to have, and always in the back garden they were quite partial to a TikTok.
I think one thing from me picking up on what you've just said as well is that you seem to celebrate that, and I think that's probably why culturally potentially you're so strong right now, is that actually there are so many different people and so many different cultures that come with that, but the fact that you're like it's amazing, like we get them dancing in French, that sort of stuff, like it's class.
I see French dancing.
Totally. Yeah.
Now talk to me about that language barrier though. Is it a barrier? And like how much of it happens in French, how much of it happens in English? How do you balance that and ensure that people feel seen and acknowledged and not like there's a hierarchy?
Yeah, I think like Mo said, it's really important to embrace like that their language and try to the majority of our girls are English predominant and may not speak as French as well as the Quebec girls can speak English. So most of what we do is in English, but I think we try to encourage, and I think they're very good about finding ways to insert French into our culture and our day-to-day and make sure that, because Canada is bilingual, and so it's a huge part of our team. And when we sing the anthem, there's an English version and a French version, and we combine the two. And I think it's super important for us to be able to do that. And our head coach is from France, so I think like it can be tiring for them at the end of a long day in training, like constantly working in another language. So we try to find when he's with them, I think they speak French predominantly. And if you call the brain trust of the team, maybe like you're 8, 9, 10. So when we are 9 and 10 from the World Cup, they speak French, and I speak French, obviously not as well as them because it's second language, but and then Kevin, our head coach, when we would have like brain trust meetings at the end of the day, we would normally do that in French because they're exhausted from a long day, and like I can understand it. And even if I'm responding in English or broken French, I think it's easier and better for them to have that opportunity to like converse in their own language and like express themselves the way that they want to be expressed. And I think another important thing that we've done is like integrated a French-speaking therapist, like physiotherapist. Because if you think like you get injured on a field, you're like in pain. There's a lot of emotions going through your head, and now you have to try to express what you're feeling in a different language. So I think that's also really important. So just little touches like that, so that we can find ways to integrate both cultures within our team. Because, yeah, like I said, Canada's bilingual, and so they're equally as part of Canadian culture.
I love that. Whose idea was it to get the French therapist in, out of interest? Because I know that in England, for example, there's a group that sits outside that have all these ideas that they take it to the coaches. Was that something that the coaching staff thought about, or you guys thought of as players?
I'm not 100% sure where it came from. I don't think it came from our leadership group, because I feel like I would have been privy to that, but I think maybe it was the med staff that thought it was really important, and so potentially our coaching as well, because like I said, Kevin is French, and so he understands like the difficulties that arise there, and so I think it was a combination of staff.
I love the brains trust. How good's that? You want to be in the brains trust?
Yeah, I want to be in the brains trust. Can I come?
He wants to be in the brains trust.
No backline players allowed. Yeah, basically. Like, just give us 9 and 10. The rest of them, they'll get the message eventually. It'll get through there.
It's basically how you run your game, though, isn't it? Yeah. All good teams, 8, 9, 10.
And I love that happens in French. That's like the really important stuff, you know.
Fair play to you, because that is not, well, all of you that have to, you know, when you go both ways, that's incredibly difficult. I just couldn't, as a very English-speaking English person, I just couldn't even imagine.
She's our English Rose.
Yeah, I was going to say, our dear English Rose. Yeah. I'm in a bilingual household, and I can say from first-hand experience, my English runs out. And I think
we witnessed it.
Yeah, and Emily and Mo have seen it firsthand. But there is a point at which, especially when you're really tired, or I'm sure injured, where you literally just cannot find the words to like adequately explain what's going on. So it actually makes so much sense. I think if you can run a multilingual space, it just also allows for so many more people to participate and feel at home and included. And also, I'm sure it allows you to reach more fans, right?
Yeah, and like the province of Quebec is one of our biggest provinces, and also probably has one of the greatest rugby cultures in Canada. And so I think it's really important that we continue to like acknowledge that and grow that, and like be proud of that rugby culture, because we're trying to develop rugby cultures across Canada, and I think to have them as like a flagship rugby culture is something that we should be promoting.
Do we talk about the bronze final, or is this something that you like? How do you feel now when I say bronze final? Your brain goes to
disappointment. I think mentally or logically we were like, okay, we need to bounce back. We've got this. Like, we know we can put up good performances, but I think we just were pretty defeated, like emotionally, and I think and physically. Like, hindsight's always 20/20. Like, maybe we could have. I think we have the people within our squad that we could have potentially rotated more within pool matches and stuff, gotten more people minutes and gotten other people a bit more rest. And I think, you know, by the 6th game of a World Cup tournament, everyone was, and after such a monumental weekend previous. Yeah, but then you're like, you can't just give yourself that excuse. And the French team certainly didn't. They had an incredible performance and they bounced back really well from a 1-point defeat. So I don't know. It's a tough one to end your World Cup campaign on, and I think it's one that like will be kind of a stinger for us, and hopefully continue to motivate us through the next 3 years.
Yeah, I definitely didn't see that coming. After going down, 19-26 to England, that was such a close game. You guys put in such a massive effort. And after the way France played against the Black Ferns, I honestly thought that France had now like they had done as much as you can, and you are sometimes worried the teams play their match of the tournament in the semi-finals, and then you don't have a spectacle of the same standard in the final. I was very surprised about the outcome, because I don't think a 36-0 scoreline adequately reflects the effort that you guys put in at this tournament. And I just want to say, like, I have so much respect and absolute empathy, and like both of the girls here are sitting nodding as well. For the effort you guys put in, and just thank you for bringing it the way you guys did.
100%.
Yeah. I think regardless of like win or loss, we've built a lot of momentum after the England game, like publicly, for Canadian rugby, and so that was like one of the most disappointing parts. Was it was like, oh, this is just like poking a balloon that's filling up with air, and it's just like, it's deflating to lose that way after creating so much momentum. And coming home, like, everyone's saying how proud they are of us and what a great the England game was, but like, we built throughout the tournament, and that was like one of 6 games. And so I think like it's important to look at the whole tournament, and I think there's lots of learnings for us to take from the whole tournament.
Have things changed since you got back home? You said you've built, obviously, momentum, and has that been reflected in like media stuff and obviously, I don't know, people getting actively involved in rugby and whatnot? Because obviously it's a huge thing, isn't it, over in Canada, trying to continue to grow the game there? Yeah,
I think it's slow progress. Like, there has been a bit more media coverage for sure, and I think, like I said, it was massive for us to have the coverage on TSN for broadcasting. I think it's really important that the people within Canadian rugby that are already established in Canadian rugby, so that people like myself take the time to like go and grow it and go do minis and go, I don't know, speak to younger people, go to schools, like show face like our national team members that are in and around Canada, because I still think that it's going to be a slow progress. Like, there's always kind of that buzz around a World Cup time. You think about it, like in Olympics, there's a huge buzz, and then the danger is that it peters out, and we don't really have a lot of. It's not like we have a Prem 15s where you can go, oh, I loved rugby, I loved watching that so much. Like, I'm gonna go watch a Premier 15s game. Like, we don't have that league where those girls that fell in love with rugby over the World Cup can continue to watch it and support it. So I think it's important for us that we, I don't know, tell them about the Prem 15s League and say, you might not be able to go to a live game, but you can live stream it. And there's your local club over here, and we'll be playing again at X time. Like, look out for us. And so I think it's going to be slow progress, but everyone within Canadian rugby has that same agenda and same vision for what it could be. So
what was interesting though is that, so this year for you didn't only include a World Cup. You had the Pacific 4 tournament that Canada competed in. And so there was probably a really nice build-up to this tournament now, which I'm sure makes it hard when you come down from all of that. But there was a regular action. You guys were in camp together. I mean, it took a lot of sacrifice, and for a lot of you to prioritize rugby over life and everything else at the same time. But I mean, reflecting on what was, beautiful victories over the USA in Pac 4, over Australia. You scored such a beautiful try against Italy, like when you were named captain. There's just been so many beautiful moments in this year, even leading up to the World Cup. But we were talking last week about the group stages of the World Cup, and Emily was saying it feels like years ago.
I barely remember them.
I mean, you can hardly remember the group stages, but like looking back at the whole project, what is it that stands out for you? Which of the games? What about the phases and the build?
It's funny. Like, I don't think it's any of the games really. I think it's we budgeted, like, Rugby Canada gave the most the greatest budget that they've ever given to women's rugby 15s this year. Like, rightly so, and we're well supported, but they don't have all the capabilities possible to support the way some other unions can. And so we knew that, like, considering the amount of time England, France, New Zealand would get to spend together, we needed to make sacrifices to spend more time together. And so prior to our Victoria camp leading into the Italy game, post Pac 4. Because those flights are already budgeted for, we decided to have a pre-camp in Victoria leading into our actual camp. So it's more informal, like women that can't come because they have jobs, or if they can make it remote. Like it was more informal, but most everybody came out, and that was just a 5-day one, and that was also partially funded by our Monty Heald Fund, which is a fund like put together by Canadian rugby lovers that wanted to help support our team. And then after the Victoria camp, we decided we needed to do the same before our Halifax camp leading into the Wales game. Again, those flights are already budgeted for, so it makes sense to do it in Halifax. So, but you just push the flights earlier. So most of us came out at least two to 3 weeks prior to that Halifax camp, and we would train in the mornings and in the evenings or late afternoons, because some of our teammates that would be working during the day or trying to find jobs remotely or had given up work and jobs. And we billeted with people in the Halifax community that offered to have people stay with them. We carpooled and borrowed extra cars here and there so that we could get around to training. And I think just seeing the sacrifices that each of our teammates had to go through to be there and to show up. And in the end, everyone showed up, and it was an optional thing because we know the jobs that they have, that they hold, that like the financial sacrifice that it takes to take 3 weeks off when you're already taking months off in a World Cup year. And it was really good team building because you're not in camp. So like, you know, we could go downtown and walk around in the evenings and just kind of enjoy each other's time. And so that was the highlight for me, was like those periods, that early period in Victoria and the longer period that we had in Halifax, where we did these soft centralizations and everyone showed up and everyone trained just as hard as if we were in camp. But equally, there's a bit less stress than when you're in camp. And so we were really able to build and enjoy each other's company.
I think hearing you talk about that, there's no wonder that your culture is amazing. Do you know what I mean? Like if you've got that buy-in from everyone, like you said, when you're not in a proper camp, intense environment, it's so much nicer because people are a bit more relaxed. There's not so much on edge. And yeah, hearing you talk about that like that, I'm like, there's no wonder. My mind's blown that you guys went through that in a World Cup year, like when obviously other nations are so privileged with what they get. And we've all been there, like we've been amateur for many, many years previously, yeah. But like hearing you talk about that, we understand the stresses and how difficult it can be financially and stuff. But hats off to you all, that's incredible.
And when you say we decided, was that a decision that you guys made as players, then took it to the coaches as if arriving in Halifax could be done? Like arriving earlier and having those pre-game camps or whatever you call them was a possibility, or was that something that coaches brought to you guys? Because obviously, given people work, etc., it's quite a tricky thing for the coaches perhaps to deliver that or ask that of people.
So I think like leaving Pac 4, we knew where we were and we knew where we needed to be to contest for a World Cup. And so Kevin and I spoke, and he was like, look, I am dedicating all my time to this. So if wherever you need me to be, and our assistant coach Duncan, same thing, wherever you need us to be, we'll be there. And this is kind of what I gather the amount of days most teams are spending together in the lead up. So say from that point on, it was like 45 to 50 days most teams would have together. And for us at that point, it was 16 days that we would have together in prep. And so we looked at that and we're like, no matter what we do in those 16 days, it's going to be difficult to catch up. And so I kind of took that away, and our leadership group took that away, and we talked about like what could it look like to do these kind of soft centralizations. We took it to the team, just within the players, no staff, and just talked about like, what do we need to make this happen? What are the realistic chances of making this happen? Who, preliminary would be able to compete right now, would be able to come right now from what you think you can do, like who needs to talk to their bosses, blah, blah, blah. And right after Pac 4, so quite quickly, we kind of turned it around, and we asked the Monty Heald Fund for some additional money. They'd already given us some money to top up the Rugby Canada budget for the year. They gave us some additional money to fund that like 4 or 5 day pre-camp in Victoria. And then we started a GoFundMe to raise money for that 3-week camp pre-Halifax. And yeah, like just to see the commitment from everyone and the commitment from our staff as well. Like our video analyst, Stacy, was there the entire time as well. Therapists came out early to camp, like all that type of thing. It wasn't just the players, it was the staff as well that was bought in. And so that was pretty a pretty cool bonding opportunity for us. And like, yeah, obviously you'd rather not be amateur, but I think there are things that come out of amateurism that can contribute to a culture. And so hopefully eventually we get professional, but we can maintain like that same unity and like the give that it takes to be on a national team.
I've got goosebumps.
Yeah, same.
I don't know about you
Alicia was
guys.
just saying that, yeah.
I mean, that is insane. Is there one person that sometimes when the going got tough and you thought, gosh, this is crazy, like, what am I doing? Is there one person your mind would go to where you go, you know what, if she can do this, if she can manage, if she can balance, if she can somehow find a way, then I can find a way?
Yeah, there's a couple that come to mind that have like genuine full-time jobs that they're balancing. So you think of like an Alex Tessier who ended up playing 10 for us throughout most of the tournament. She's got a product procurement job, like working with the cosmetics company. So she's full-time, like 9 to 5 throughout the week. She was doing everything remote. Galou, one of our girls, she quit her job, I believe, to come train, but also ended up, because her roommates were like, you don't have any income. I might be butchering this story slightly, but I know that she lost like her living situation as well and was just living out of her suitcase. Girls that had gone overseas and come back were literally living out of a suitcase for 9 months, going through this journey. People like Brittany Castle, full-time firefighters, would try to get their shifts covered so that they could come out early. My own partner, Emma Taylor, is like a project manager at a shipbuilding company. She's got like a really cool job and it's pretty big time. And she, would be up at 5 a.m. in the morning. Luckily, she lives in Halifax, so she could continue working during that stint, but she'd be up at 5 to go lift and then work throughout the day and then go to training in the afternoons. And I just think, seeing people like that, I don't have a job right now, so it was easier for me to just show up. But seeing people trying to juggle all that and the stress of leading into a World Cup, and also I think it's really important to say this is all pre-selection. So none of these people are guaranteed to make a World Cup team. So they're making all this sacrifice without knowing that it's actually going to pay off in the end. So yeah, like I just think there's literally something you can take, some part of inspiration you can take from every single person.
That's incredible.
Oh, it's mad, isn't it?
That
Very
is
humbling hearing you talk about that. Like really humbling.
Yeah.
And just incredible. Like the girls that you've got in that squad are obviously so keen for it. And like I'm sure that that's driven you on even more. But to do all of that, to go through all of that and then to put up the fight that you did, I'm going to go back to England because I think that was probably best game of the tournament for you guys, but to put up that fight against the girls, like fair play, hats are off. Wow.
Yeah, I obviously I don't know what's happening, and I hope something is going to continue to move for you guys in terms of heading towards that professionalism bit. But like we've connected a lot recently with our old Red Roses and the guys that started it and the guys that sacrificed so much and were sewing their own badges on their shirts and all that sort of stuff because they wanted to make our game better and put the England side in a brilliant place. And you guys are doing such a fantastic job of obviously not, completely down that end, but of kind of pushing your side, your game forward in a country where obviously you're not being as supported perhaps as well as other countries in the world. But one day that will happen, and one day the girls that are reaping the rewards of that will be so incredibly thankful for everything that you guys have done towards
100%.
that.
Yeah.
I think also like you should be talking about it. Like I had no idea that you guys have done that, do you know what I mean? And now hearing you talk about it is so inspirational, but also there's got to be people in Canada that are like, what can we do to help these girls? Like what can we do? How can we get behind them? How can we make this happen? So definitely don't be like afraid to go out and say it because it's such an inspirational story. It's incredible.
Yeah, I appreciate that perspective and of like where the game can go, and like there's pioneers that came before us too that had even different circumstances, and so I think like we're trying to move it forward and eventually get to a setup more like what England has, but every country has their own story of like hardships that they've been through and hardships that they currently have that like we don't know about. And like you said, Mo, it's probably important to share that. And we didn't want to make a huge deal out of it during the World Cup because we didn't want to have like this, we wanted the story to be our performance on the field. But I think now we can talk more about like, where does that funding come from? We don't necessarily have it within our organization. So where can we find it? Is it private sponsorships? Is it, X, Y, Z? And I think it's that story of this summer and this year is going to be an important one to share to help bolster potential opportunities.
100%.
It was interesting when we had Alice Soper on the show. We talked about you guys actually, and she said, just 1 to 30, all of you just so solid, absolutely cohesive, so committed. And she said a part of what makes Canadian rugby tick from where we're standing looking from the outside in just seems to be the fact that you guys have found such strength and cohesiveness in the face of all of the odds. Is the best route forward professionalism? Is the best route forward a bigger base to select people from, like a broader, a more sophisticated domestic scene? Like, what's the first step here to solving the realities of what the current players are facing?
I think it's probably a combination. And definitely, to grow at a high performance level, you need to grow at a grassroots level. You need to grow at like that mid-level, that our university game in Canada is one of our stronger leagues. So that's a good pathway. But then post-university, so girls that are graduating, or I guess young women that are graduating around 21 or 22, they don't necessarily have a strong club structure to go into to continue growing as rugby players. So I think we have to continue to develop our age group stuff. Having a U23 national team, which I believe is in the works, is huge. So building that pathway. And then the other thing, of course, would be professionalism to whatever degree, when whatever that looks like. I think it's probably different in every country, what that setup looks like. And we need to figure out, A, where the money comes from, and B, what the setup looks like in our own country. Like, centralization is a difficult thing to do, but we live in such a massive country that you can't say, oh, you just fly home for the weekend and then come back in and come back out. And that becomes like insanely expensive. Yeah. But then centralization, like I said, is very difficult. And if you centralize a national 15s team, well, they're not getting any games. And then, if you centralize them in Canada, so do you centralize them overseas and have them play in an overseas league? Like, there's all these different permutations and combinations that it could look like. Or are you just sending girls overseas and telling them to play over there and then contracting them to come back, but then we're not getting a lot of time together as a national team? And yeah, it's a difficult problem to solve, but I think we have committed people that are trying to solve it. And within Rugby Canada, we have a new CEO that I think seems very committed to solving that problem. We have a board of directors that I think is also, for lack of a better word, on board and trying to find a solution. And so, it's a tough problem to solve. Like, there's no hiding from that, but I think there's got to be a solution to every problem.
You've now more than once mentioned a Canadian club participating in a league elsewhere. Are we talking, is it like London Irish, London Canadian? Like, should we start shopping for a base for you guys over here?
I love that idea. That's my own personal opinion. I don't know that anything is in the works or that it's even possible, but I think that's a pretty cool way of doing it. But I think, that opens up a whole can of worms that's maybe unprecedented and difficult to regulate. But you never know.
We could have Loughborough, Canada and London, America or something like that.
She's really going on the hard sell trying to get you over.
So we're brainstorming.
But before we started recording, I would just like to say that Emily did put in a big old case here for Sophie de Goede to seriously consider moving to Loughborough. But we'll let them have this conversation off air again once we've stopped talking about this. Now, you are second generation. I have described you as the crown princess of Canadian rugby because, I don't know if there's anyone in rugby, male or female, that has the kind of heritage, legacy. You are second generation rugby royalty. And your mum and your dad and their experiences as both leaders in Canadian rugby, off the pitch and on it, you must draw so much from what they've done and what they've seen and what they've experienced. I mean, your mum played at the first Rugby World Cup in 91. We've finally had the 91 women inducted into the World Rugby Hall of Fame out in New Zealand. And you must be so incredibly proud when you see stuff like that happen and you know your mum was part of that.
Totally, yeah. My mom was our first ever Canadian women's team captain in 1987. And so to hear what that team was like and the struggles that they had to go through and where we are now, I think obviously you always want to push further, but it brings a certain amount of like gratitude for everything that they've done and for me personally what she's done. And she's still she's been on BC Rugby boards, which is our province. She's been on Alberta Rugby boards, which is her home province. She's been on Rugby Canada boards. She's now the chairwoman, volunteer obviously for all this, chairwoman of the Monty Hield Fund, which is our National Senior Women's 15s Fund that I mentioned earlier. So to just see like that continued involvement even after her playing days is huge. And the same from my dad on the men's side, and also both of them contributing to our local clubs. Like I was down at the club every Saturday, which is rare for young girls in Canada, and I think that was huge for my development and my understanding of the game. And so, just really proud of everything that they accomplished in their careers, but almost more so in what they've accomplished off the field in staying committed to rugby in Canada and wanting to grow it for myself, so that like when I come into the national rugby system or even age grade and all that it's in a better place than when they were there. So yeah, I'm obviously inspired by them on a daily basis.
When you go home, is rugby like the main topic of conversation, or do you have to put a ban on it? Because I know my parents aren't rugby players at all. Well, my dad used to play a bit, but no, not to that level by any stretch. And sometimes when I go home, I have to put a little rugby conversation ban on just because it's, it's all consuming as it is. But obviously with rugby playing parents, is that then even more so, or are you quite good at separating it?
I think they're pretty good. Like, obviously, sometimes they get excited about rugby and they want to talk about it. But for the most part, they're pretty good at, like, tempering themselves and going, hey, maybe, like, she just took a tough loss and she doesn't want to talk about it. Or, like, she doesn't want to talk strategy or tactics. And, like, they, we have other topics of conversation, but sometimes it strays back to rugby. And I think there's a famous video of my dad, like, doing a halftime speech against Tonga in the 1987 World Cup. And like I've gotten so many of those speeches over the course of my life around like rugby, but also life and how to lead within life and how to grow and develop as a person. And yeah, like I'm going off topic here, but I think that like we do talk about rugby a lot, but we also talk about it as like a vehicle for life, and sport is that in such great capacity.
So good. Those speeches, is that why you're so good?
I don't know.
Because you are very, very, very good
I can
at
just
rugby.
imagine like a toddler Sophie like battling to try and tie her laces and Hans de Goede giving her one of those speeches like, come on, no, just focus, just stay in the process,
I definitely I remember trying to learn the monkey bars one time and I kept falling and they're like, you just keep going, like it doesn't matter, you could fail.
Stick you back
you're
up there.
learning on the monkey bars, like 5 years trying to learn. Yeah.
So your dad played second row. Mum Steph was a flanker. You used to play fly half, hence the kicking responsibilities being yours. Tell me about the move to number 8. Did they have any influence on this?
No, actually, it was my U18 Canada coach, Dan Valley, who ended up coaching me at university too. Amazing coach, an amazing person. And he just, I guess I was growing more into my body. Like I was always 6 foot, but super lanky. I like played scrum half. I hated contact. I remember like
Scaz is
getting
still growing
hit
into
super
her.
hard one time. I got hit super hard one time and I got winded and I was like just burst into tears. My mom was like, you can't cry like mid-game. Like you got tough love. But yeah, so then I kind of grew into my body a bit when I was, I guess that would have been like grade 10, grade 11. And Dan saw a vision for me playing at 8, but like having the skills and of a more of a distributor of a 10 and the vision of a fly half from the back of the scrum. And I just never looked back from there. I loved it because I really like playing in the backs because of the vision that you have, but I like playing in the forwards because like you know, that is the crux of rugby, is like that physical contest up front. And so like having the balance of those two, it depends.
Mo's going,
having the balance of those two is what I kind of fell in love with.
That's class.
Tell me about the Sophie de Goede mental internal pep talk when you have to take a clutch kick. You've just been like tearing it up somewhere in the deep, dark, whatever the forwards do. And then you have to step up and take a really important kick. What is the voice inside your brain doing at that point?
I think like I'd actually be really curious to hear like what Scaz's thoughts are on this. My first thing is like breathe, and then my second thing is act natural, because I think I have a super like tendency to overthink and like, oh, the wind, or my last kick went left, or blah blah blah, and like that's important to a certain extent, but once you're in a game, I think you just have to like trust in your natural ability. And I played soccer a lot as a kid growing up, and just like I just tell myself to act natural.
I love that.
Act natural.
Act natural.
Act natural.
Also, it's very different, like running as hard as you can and carrying around the fringes like you do versus, no offense, Scazzy, but Scazzy out in the 13 channel just trying to like burn someone on the out. That's crazy. I've never thought
5
about
years
that
ago,
before.
we don't burn people on the out.
Yeah.
We go through the middle one.
So what's your version of
No.
act natural?
Yeah, it's very similar. It's kind of the boring cliche, isn't it, of go back to your process and all that sort of stuff. But I do think like it's very natural to, especially on the big kicks, the clutch kicks, as you say, to be like, just have a moment of, whoa, you know, whatever that is inside your head, but just kind of like, this is a big one, and be nervous about it and kind of not fear it a little bit, but a little bit. Do you know what I mean? Because of obviously the consequence of if you don't hit it. But for me, that's a real narrower of my focus in that, all those feelings. And it won't always be perfect. It won't always go right, but just trying to, as I say, go back to that process, do what you always do. So probably that act natural piece. I don't know if that would work for me, because I think I'd overthink what acting natural looked like.
You'd be like,
Start strutting around.
do I
or something.
normally like shake?
But yeah, it's all the boring stuff really. But it to me, goal kicking is a fascinating place to be on a rugby pitch, because it's that individual skill that can have such a huge impact on a game and on, you know, outcomes and stuff. But it's basically just you, which is kind of scary sometimes. It is.
I mean, I'm nervous watching it, like, and I love the attention. So I don't think the attention part is what scares me. It's the fact that the only thing that I could equate it to is swinging a golf club, and I never know what's going to happen when I swing it. I mean, this thing could go absolutely anywhere. So the fact that you can step up in a clutch moment with all of your teammates and then everyone else watching, counting on you, and not wobble all over the place. That is phenomenal.
Yeah, I think just going back, the breathing thing is something that I use as well. It's really important for me, just because, or despite what Mo says, sometimes you have just done a lot of work.
I'm joking.
You are out of breath.
You're always doing the work, guys. You're on
And
roads.
naturally, obviously, you're panting and trying to get air in. So not necessarily to try and be less tired, but just to regulate that, because naturally breathing faster, everything's more frantic. So just trying to take longer, deeper breaths, just a couple before I kind of start my setup bit is definitely something that I've used and has helped as well.
Focus on the breath. Now, one of the things I've loved the most, Sophie, over the last while, outside of the fact that the Canada Women's account, if you don't follow them on Instagram, is called BeliefXV. Like literally, that's the handle. It's one of my favorite things when you open Canada Rugby and it says BeliefXV. Is the started. Or this, wait, how it started, how it's going, photos that you posted on Instagram of baby Sophie at the 2006 Rugby World Cup, baby Sophie holding a ball with putting like a hand up to the camera, really stylized shots, like tiny little super rugby hero in development. Did you take these photos on that big Tuesday photo day before the start of the tournament in recreation of that shot? Was that the reference? Did someone say, can we redo this picture of you as a child?
No, it was actually total coincidence. So I knew I had those photos and I wanted to like post them as like part of like beginning the World Cup because it's been a dream for so long. But then we did this photo shoot and the cameraman asked me to do like the thing where you hold the ball here and straight arm the camera. And then with the captain's shoot, like obviously you want to get one next to the trophy. And so it was like just a coincidence that I was looking back through both of them. I was like, whoa, these really actually line up very well. So yeah, it was total fluke, but it's pretty neat to look back on.
It's class. Written in the stars.
Literally.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, do you sometimes feel like you're just, you were really pretty much destined to do this? When people say you were literally bred to do what you're doing now, does that make it feel like we're talking about a racehorse, or does that go? Does like your inner voice go yep, 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 pretty much?
Maybe to a certain extent, but I think I've always had the opportunity to do other things, and I like fell in love with rugby from a personal standpoint, not from anything my parents did or like the environment I was in. I'm lucky that I had the opportunity to do that from such a young age, but I also played like a lot of sports growing up. I played basketball at the university level, which was kind of like my own thing. And then at a certain point, like I had to choose between basketball and rugby, and I loved rugby more. Like when I was playing basketball and I get frustrated, I'm not the best shooter. I would like just want to hit someone. And that's when I knew like, okay, I need to play rugby.
That's what you two have in common.
Yeah, they're living parallel lives.
We should get, I've always wanted to do this, like play another country at a different sport.
Oh,
because Hallie and Below have been at Loughborough for a while, 2 American girls, and we've been up to the courts at Loughborough and played a bit of basketball. I was about to say shoot some hoops, but it just wouldn't sound right. I was about to say that. I was nearly said it and then I didn't.
Sophie de Goede, this is Scaz in full glory, by the way.
De Goede versus Scaz, shooting hoops.
We've been up to play some basketball, and it was such fun. It was like really, really good fun. I've always wanted like rounders. I don't know if you guys play rounders, a bit like softball or anything like that. I've always wanted to play another country, but a different sport to rugby.
Fundraiser,
cricket, anything.
Fundraiser for the Canada women's team.
That's
awesome. We should play basketball.
Basketball, like a super team, basically.
Little point guard over here.
Yeah.
I feel like we should have Mo as the coach. I feel like
no, I want to play. Don't coach.
Okay. Sorry.
I'm the coach in bed.
Okay, no, she's in the middle of all of it.
She's fuming.
I am. I'm bubbling inside, by the way.
Oh, I can't wait for this. What are you up to these days? So you've come back from the tournament now. You've got a BCom degree. You are not playing in the Prem 15s as of right now. Emily is still busy recruiting. So, I mean, Loughborough, Gloucester, they're all putting their hands up over here. But what's on the agenda for you?
Yeah, I'm missing rugby a lot already, but right now I'm trying to get an internship. So, like you said, I just graduated with my BCom, and I really love the idea. If you couldn't tell us already, I like doing lots of things at once, like playing basketball, going to school, everything. I like the idea of being like having this multiple things on the go. And so I really want to be able to grow my career off the field in conjunction with my career and rugby dreams on the field. And then we have a 3-year cycle before the next World Cup. So I thought it made the most sense, like if I want to be in Canada long term, to spend this next like 6 months in Canada working, getting some work experience, which I don't really have any of on my CV. And then going back overseas.
You have tons of work experience. Yeah. You have led people into doing things literally for free that most people wouldn't even do for actual real money.
Yeah, I think
thanks, I appreciate that.
Definitely, like we speak about this quite a bit, don't we? Because obviously we've been professional, and we always try and do other things while alongside it, like you say, for post rugby life and stuff. But we never appreciate what the stuff we've done in rugby actually contributes towards the CV, because it's not, it's not a degree or it's not something particularly tangible as, say, work experience in a company for a month or whatever that might be. But actually, you're captain at 23 of your national side. You've been to a World Cup, made a semi-final, like all of those things. And that's just the headlines. The digging deeper into that sort of stuff, working with people, leadership, all of that sort of stuff is like, you can't, people will go to university for years and not get that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, literally. I mean, your skills have been forged in such an incredibly high pressure space with almost no resources coming your way. I feel like if I was interviewing you for a job, those kinds of things would be more interesting and probably more practically useful than almost any qualification, but you also do have a university degree. So I feel like any company out there listening to this would go, geez, let me figure out how to get hold of this woman.
I think overarching as well, you're just so inspirational to listen to. And I think, never mind a job, get yourself into big companies and just tell your story, because people will like lap you up. Honestly, you're such an inspiration. I hope I'm not talking out of turn or sounding patronising, because I'm not meaning to at all, but just sat here listening to you speak and the way that you love the girls and what you've done for Canada. And like Scazzy said, the fact that you're 23 as well, like honestly, it's incredible.
And you're bilingual.
Bit sickening, actually, if we're honest.
Making me want to like reassess what I'm doing.
Okay, so internship, job opportunities, something busy in Canada at the moment. You're obviously looking towards 25. How does that long-term journey look now?
So I think after, and maybe like I go stir crazy partway through the winter in the snow and decide I want to like come over and play rugby. Who knows? But I think the next 2 seasons for sure I want to spend overseas, whether it's in France or England, and leading into the next World Cup. And then, from there, I think it's time to like reassess. I definitely want to continue playing rugby, but in terms of the career-wise, whether I stay overseas or come back. But yeah, like I just love, I don't know, you guys obviously feel the same. I just love rugby so much. I think it's such an incredible sport. I think like from a physical standpoint, it encompasses like all aspects of fitness, but then from a mental and tactical standpoint, there's just so much behind it. So I want to play rugby for as long as possible. It's just what the off-field stuff looks like that I'm trying to figure out.
Well, I feel like the sport is really lucky to have you. And I'm so excited for the Sophie plus 10 years version of the person that we're speaking to now and what she is still going to achieve. Because you are so together and already such a massive asset to Canadian rugby at the age of 23, that the sky is the limit.
100%.
Absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much, Sophie, for joining us. It's been great just hearing more about the journey that you guys have been on. And thank you for the entertainment. Thank you for bringing it.
Yeah, no problem. That's my job. Canadian. I gotta like the entertainment, the cold beers. Like that's my job.
I'm still waiting to see the dance moves. I'm not gonna lie, but we'll hold you to that when we see you next in person.
Keep dancing.
You can rely on the other Canadians.
I reckon I saw a few in Monaco. But I can vouch.
Was that her or was it me?
Oh God.
No. Thank you so much for joining us, Sophie. Keep in touch. We'll keep an eye on whether you don the purple jersey, and then we'll know whether Emily's pitch was worth it.
Thanks very much for having me. I really appreciate it. Had a lot of fun.
Cheers.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much to Sophie de Goede for joining us. What an absolute inspiration. I feel like I could probably follow her almost anywhere. I mean, Canada's very cold.
So anywhere, but actually
it's very cold. But
she's class.
Oh my
I
gosh.
can't quite wrap my head around the fact that she's 23.
Yeah.
Like, unbelievable player, but how she speaks, obviously how she's led that side, all of those things. Yeah, it's bonkers that she's 23 years old, because that's a really young place to be captain of a side, and all of that other stuff as well. It's not like, they've got a professional setup and you just slot in and it's all, happy and you don't have to sort much out.
Yeah, because she was talking about looking at budgets and flights, and I was like, sure, those are some real team manager duties right there.
That's mad. I just going back to how she plays as well. Like you follow her in battle everywhere she goes, because she's just that player. Like she commands respect no matter who she's playing for, where she's playing, what position she's playing. But then, like Scaz said, to hear her talk the way she did, like honestly, sat here, I was just sat there like watching her for a little bit. Like, no, we're actually in a conversation. Like I need to pipe up about this. But yeah, she's incredible.
Sort of person I'd love to do a kicking session with, because like kicking sessions. What do you mean?
You say kicking session, in my head I want to go for a pint with her.
Oh no, wait, bear with me.
Yeah, okay, sorry.
What I was going to say was, because obviously common ground of kicking, but then in between, when you kick, basically in between kicks, you always have a conversation and you wander around and you do this and that. And it's a really nice, as long as you're not taking it too seriously, it's a nice way to actually chat to somebody, pick their brains on stuff, and also kick some goals.
Can I mic you guys up because then we can
Yeah.
organise this?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Put it on my list. Yay! All right. Well, thank you. It's been great having you both. Thank you to Sophie de Goede for getting up very early and chatting to us on our time zone. This has been the Scaz and the Rugby, brought to you by Vodafone. Make sure that you catch us every Thursday wherever you find your podcasts. And the Good Scaz and the Rugby is a Folding Pocket production produced by Shara Kilgallen.